Chapter 10. A few moments of silence passed before Hannah's mother spoke up. Her fear had since faded, her motherly nature kicking in. "Hannah, where did you meet him?" Her mother crossed her arms and began examining her daughter very carefully. Hannah attempted not to lock eyes with her mother, understanding the source of the scrutiny. "It was that day I was late to the bakery." "You said you were picking out dresses." "No, he's not why I was late. It was when I headed home that night." "You conversed with a sorcerer at night?" her mother asked, with an extreme level of shock. "Not by choice," Hannah responded, trying to save herself from the hole she was digging. "Well, I'd certainly hope not." If Jasper was listening, he may have been offended by the statement. Fortunately, he was carefully watching Van, whose curiosity knew no bounds. Van was exploring the different levels, picking up and observing all sorts of things. Jasper cringed and raised his hands every time Van touched something he was not meant to. "But I did at a later point, at the ball." Hannah felt she needed to defend Seer. Her mother, though not intentionally, placed him among all other sorcerers in her mind. From a young age, all were taught of the evil deeds associated with sorcery in the form of tales and stories. Her mother could not help that these feelings were ingrained in her being. Hannah realized this. However, that did not mean she could not try to change her mother's perceptions. "You voluntarily spoke with the boy?" her mother asked, her shock growing. "Yes. We danced, and as he tried to leave, I chased after him." Though her words were honest, Hannah understood the misinterpretation her mother may gather from them, but she did not care. She had nothing to lose at this point, because her future was planned out for her. She'd be the queen, whether she wanted it or not. Her mother was about to open her mouth in exclamation, but another cry interrupted their conversation. "No, don't mess with that!" Jasper yelled out at Van, who was inspecting the vials on Seer's work table. He shuffled to the level and carefully placed the vials in their correct positions. Van did not appear disappointed. In fact, he looked more intrigued by the contents on the work table. "Van!" their mother yelled. Van turned to her in a panic. "Stop before you get hurt!" Van rolled his eyes. He peered up at Jasper, who cautiously dusted any stray particles from Seer's work table, hoping to remove any signs that someone had tampered with his possessions. "Did he use all this to make that ball?" Van asked Jasper. As he looked into Van's eyes, Jasper realized a genuine interest. He could never quite resist teaching others about sorcery. "Yes, actually, Sir used a combination of this one." Jasper pointed to a vial with a cloudy blue liquid, "named Cessian Indigo, and this one," this time pointing to a gray, powdery substance, "named Mycorian. Now, there are many ingredients, but these are the primary two. It's a quite advanced potion." Hannah's mother stared at him, looking petrified by his instructing of Van. She opened her mouth as if to scream, but Hannah placed a hand on her shoulder. "Ma, it's okay," she whispered, attempting to calm her mother. Her words seemed to work, for her mother closed her mouth, though continuing to stare at Van and Jasper. "Seer then added the ingredients to the vat." Jasper continued his teaching as if nothing was the matter. "Recited an incantation. This one is particularly long, and poof! An Empyrean orb. It's actually quite intriguing. You see, Seer created a formula so that he could put multiple spells at once into a single orb. When doing this, one has to be careful that the individual ingredients don't interact with each other before the incantation, and what does it do?" Van asked innocently. Hannah had never known Van to be patient when learning. She realized he must be genuinely interested in the subject, to her mother's horror. "Well, I'm not sure," Jasper responded, scratching his head. Though seemingly wise and well-versed in sorcery, Hannah couldn't help but feel Jasper was rather uncomfortable with visitors around. Not that he should have any reason to feel otherwise. After all, sorcerers were looked down upon by much of society. Hannah began to wonder why this was so. "Jasper?" "Yes?" "The proposed amendment. What would happen to you and Seer if it were to pass?" Jasper tilted his head, his eyes connecting with her. He slowly stumbled toward Hannah until he stood no more than a few feet from her. "Not just the two of us, young lady, but all sorcerers. The amendment would ban our presence within the kingdoms of those countries in the United Court of Kings forcing all those living within them to relocate immediately, which means abandoning all they could not carry on their backs on the way out. For many sorcerers, it would mean leaving behind family and friends, setting off into the unknown. For, despite our talents, sorcerers do rely on others for food and garments. If the amendment passes, all sorcerers would not only be homeless, but dehumanized, no longer seen as people by these kingdoms. There was silence. Hannah's mother sat in a chair, her mind spiraling in confusion, the opposing thoughts fighting amongst themselves. Before this day, she would have wanted the amendment to pass. In fact, on this day, up until they entered the cabin, she would have wanted it so. But, hearing the human words of a sorcerer, and seeing the expression on Hannah's face, her mother was unsure what she wanted to happen with the future of the amendment. "Why are you and Seer not angry like the other sorcerers, like the one who is causing this?" "You are mistaken. No one sorcerer is capable of a magical bacteria to this degree. A political group composed of sorcerers is behind it. They call themselves the Guild for the Rights of Oppressed Sorcerers. They are meant to represent the population of sorcerers in courts throughout the many kingdoms, lobbying for the rights of sorcerers within. However, recently the Guild have been expressing their views more threateningly. It started a few years back when many of the older members wished to step down. Seer Sorcel became the youngest member, and the Guild made great strides with his charisma and leadership. Unfortunately, the other members grew discontent, wanting matters to progress faster. Seer was replaced by Hexfer Finn, not only as the leader, but as the youngest member. Hexfer, though a talented sorcerer, is a belligerent and impatient. This bacteria was undoubtedly his idea. If you ask me, they've gone beyond their original purpose of lobbying for rights and are now condemning those they feel are the oppressors." "What can we do to stop them?" Hannah asked. The image of Hexfer, the emerald cloaked sorcerer, and his hostile presence remained fixed in Hannah's mind. She couldn't imagine how an ordinary person, such as herself, would be able to stop him. Jasper appeared flummoxed by the question. "If I could convince the prince to repeal his opinions, to change his mind, the prince won't change his mind. After all, a sorcerer killed his father, the king," Jasper responded. His voice sounded much more serious and somber than prior. Hannah and her mother were shocked. The way in which the king died had never been revealed to the townspeople, though most suspected it was an assassination. The prince hadn't mentioned this to Hannah, nor was there any evidence of him harboring ill will toward sorcerers. "It doesn't make sense," Hannah said, brushing her hands through her hair. "I thought Seer said the prince and the king held different views. If that is the case, wouldn't the king have been for the rights of sorcerers?" "Yes, but then why would the Guild for the Rights of Sorcerers, or whatever they're called, want the king dead? Not all is black and white, my lady." Hannah crossed her arms. A rage kindled inside of her. "Why is Seer putting himself in danger in an attempt to stop this? You said it yourself. No one person is capable of making a disease to this extent. Wouldn't that mean no one person can stop it?" Hannah felt her frustration continue to be transformed into anger. Life had been so simple before, but in this moment her mind felt on the verge of exploding. "Creation is much more difficult than destruction," Jasper responded. His manner changed to panic as he saw Van pick up a jar with a strange conglomeration of muscle within. Jasper returned to being the daughter they originally met, stumbling after Van in his oversized leather boots, his flash of wisdom and seriousness gone. Van quickened his pace as he walked to another level, this one with a large microscope, the lens the size of a dinner plate. Hannah didn't pay them much attention. Thoughts circled in her head at high speeds. She no longer knew whether the problem was with the sorcerers or the royalty. But perhaps Jasper had a point. Perhaps there were faults with both. Faults that the opposing sides felt were irreconcilable. And then there was Seer, a sorcerer who did not follow the lead of either one or the other, sorcerers or royalty. "Whose side is Seer on? Why is he doing this?" Hannah questioned. "Miss, I don't believe you, or anyone for that matter, could ever truly understand Seer. I have known him since he was a boy, and must admit even I don't understand his motives at times. He's complicated. What I mean by that is, he's not given to people. No, I shouldn't say it like that. Seer enjoys being around people, well, before they've learned he's a sorcerer. He simply I say simply, but I'm not so sure if it's simply. Seer isn't the best with relationships, maintaining relationships. The only reason he stays here with me is that he has nowhere else to go." Hannah grew confused. From her experiences with Seer, he appeared not only calm but collected, eloquent with his words, friendly with his smile, and caring with his sacrifices. She could not deny that Jasper had known Seer much longer than she had, yet their perceptions of him were completely different, if not opposite, of one another. "Is it hard to become a sorcerer?" Van asked, while playing with a plant whose stem seemed to mirror the movement of his hand. "Van!" his mother yelled, shocked by the question that came from genuine curiosity. She began to wonder where she went wrong with raising her 2 children. Not that she hadn't always wondered this about Van, whose curiosity often got him into trouble, but she was starting to feel the same way about Hannah, whose nature began revealing itself now that she was forced to be an individual, left without friends by her side to act as a foundation. Jasper glanced at their mother, afraid she may strangle him if he were to answer the question. However, as always, he tended to value educating others over his own life, which has many times been in jeopardy due to such a quirk. "It is only as hard as the amount of effort you choose not to dedicate to studying," Jasper answered. Hannah realized once in teacher mode Jasper was much more serious. Perhaps Seer had also adopted a dual personality, which would explain why she and Jasper see him differently. "If I become one, do I get to play with these cool toys?" Van asked. Their mother could only cry out, no longer possessing the words or state of mind to stop him from asking such questions. Hannah understood her fear of any one of them being associated with sorcery was not a personal dilemma. In fact, Hannah could never recall a time when her mother had expressed a personal opinion on such controversial matters. Having been from a prominent family, her mother was taught to accept society's prejudice for fear of being shamed or ostracized for going against them. She had no fear for herself, but for the lives of her children. While Hannah appreciated the thought, she couldn't help but feel this problem may be the reason why people fail to adopt different, perhaps progressive, views. It's almost as if the royal court feasts on these fears, perhaps magnifying them, in order to remove unwanted individuals from the kingdom. "They are not toys, my boy. They are instruments used to create compounds and catalysts used in potions and circle incantations. This one is." A loud explosion was heard. Everyone in the room was silent and peered at the door. Another explosion, this one not as loud as the first, roared through the air. Hannah felt her heart race. She ran for the door, opened it, and ran toward the road to get a clear look back at Wickborough. Her mother, Van, and Jasper joined at her side. They could see a thick, black smoke rising from the center of town. Every once in a while, the smoke closer to the horizon became colored, going between green and red. Hannah shook her head in disbelief. "Jasper," Hannah mumbled, without looking from the billowing smoke, "please protect my family." And with those words, Hannah ran for Wickborough, not looking back. She hoped no one followed, though she heard her mother cry out her name. "I'm such a fool," Hannah whispered to herself as she continued to run. As she ran, she listened carefully behind her and, to her relief, heard no footsteps. Now she could focus her attention ahead.